Put that back in the closet. Um,
I'm not kidding
okay.
you. Yeah. Luna, but without the crash. Like the bank would be like, yo, I am coming in, right? Like they would come in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Degen Investor, brought to you by SJ and
QJ.
yeah, welcome back, guys. Kudos to those who saw the first two episodes and now on episode 3. Before we get started, as we wanted to just point out again that this is just two guys, two anons, just blowing water, just pontificating again about what we love best and what we find interesting about crypto. And please don't take this as financial advice, and please do your own research before you act upon anything that we say on this podcast. All right, with all ado then, let's talk about our next topic. Given right now we're seeing ETH season. ETH is now hovering around 4,003s. And we've seen, basically a lot of DeFi tokens fly. So, this is reminiscent of a lot of the 2020 DeFi season. So we wanted to make this a nice little episode about DeFi tokens and, looking at 3 of, the most hot, what we find the most exciting tokens out there. Let's get on with it. So number 3, we have
Ave. Could you guess that one?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, spoiler alert, we had a, pre-production meeting, so. Anyway.
Actually, Ave is pretty interesting, huh? Like, this has been a name that's been
OG name.
here.
This is the only OG name in this list, probably.
Yeah, it's Ave is actually the second name for the token.
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be called something else. So this is a really, really old token, really, really old ticker. And I think it has been growing tremendously over the last 5 years, actually, which is why, we are putting it on number 3. Yeah. So what do you like about Ave, Shan?
I like that the token's gone up, but I also like that, sorry, I probably shouldn't say that. Please, this is do your own research. But I think mainly because I think you always like things that sort of monopolize the thought space of the whole narrative, right? Decentralized lending, I think as a whole makes sense. But looking back, there's used to be so many of these, back in the original days of DeFi season, be it Aave, Compound, and all those. And now Aave really has seemed to just kicked out all the competition. Seems like to be the only game in town. I think that makes it pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. I think Compound has actually pretty much fallen off the map. And Aave is probably the foremost lending protocol if you were to think about the ETH mainnet.
Yeah, especially I think being on the biggest player on ETH mainnet makes a ton of noise. Which is quite important, right? Because you have all these other alt L1s, which we can talk about in another series. But I think all those other, we see a lot of these people, right? You go to a conference and then they go, look, I'm the biggest, I'm the biggest. They literally come to us and they say that we're the biggest Aave. We're the Aave in this new alt L1 chain. And, that doesn't mean anything, frankly.
Yes. In fact, I think Aave is also one of the few alts that have actually done decently since the bear market lows in 2022. So yeah. Aave is around $300. This went to as low as $50 back in 2022. Yeah. So it has actually done decently well for a DeFi token.
Yeah. So if you just describe, Aave, basically decentralized lending, you basically get a loan straight using the protocol. You don't have any middleman or not, or like you do in a bank or whatnot. And obviously it's over collateralized, but Chiyan, when we want to go through quickly, who does these loans?
So it's actually pretty interesting. It's the retail users used to be a majority of the users of Aave, and this was certainly the case back in 2020. So what you had was that you had people who had Ethereum and maybe some other various tokens that had some amount of LTV rating on Aave, what they would do would be that they didn't want to sell the tokens. They believed that the tokens would go up, but they desperately needed money, right? Maybe to service their car loan, their mortgage, or, for those a little bit wealthier, they wanted to buy a house, but they didn't want to sell. So what did they do? They would put it into Aave, which is like a lender, a decentralized lender, and then they would put it down as an over collateralized loan and borrow USDT or USDC from that. That was your first group. You had another group that was a little bit more adventurous, right? They basically said that, I have 100 Ethereum, that's not enough, right? I need more exposure. So they'll put their 100 Ethereum to Aave and maybe get a loan of like, say, 50k USDT and take that 50k USDT and buy even more Ethereum. And that would be the second use case, which is to access more leverage. The third use case back then would be for those people who wanted to get some amount of yield on their stable coins or on their Ethereum, etc. So you had two groups of people, the borrowers and the lenders, that came together. The landscape today actually looks pretty different. You have much more institutional participation. You have the more crypto native funds, etc., that would participate into this kind of decentralized lending pools. And if you look at this metric called TVL, the TVL metric for Aave actually looks really, really good. It has just been like one line going up.
It basically goes vertical, correct. And do you think that's basically the thing that drives price then? For especially, I think Aave essentially, is it basically just value locked?
I think it is a very simple abstraction if you look at TVL for Aave, because the business model for Aave is very simple, right? It's how much loan that you originate, and that is basically your revenue base that you're making money off. So if you think about it from a bank, that's basically, the
it's basically your
balance
loan
sheet.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. So I think it's a pretty simple metric. Very easy story for people to relate to it, which is why I think Aave's price has actually re-rated pretty well.
Yeah. Obviously, there's also that discussion whether, the revenue it makes goes to the token holders or whatnot. But this is, internet money land. We don't talk about such things we don't talk about such things.
Yeah, revenue is a dirty word.
Yeah, put that back in the closet. So, okay, I think that's number one, Aave. Number two, drum roll.
Okay, Sean, why don't you announce it? You announce it. I'll do the animation.
All right, number two is the point of stable coins. It's Athena. Rhymes with Luna. Okay, yeah, don't quote me on that.
Oh, actually, very interesting. How it's being pitched right now in Korea for Athena is Luna, but without the crash. I'm not kidding you. Yeah, Luna, but without the crash. And I mean, you can see why they pitch it that way, because Athena produces.
It's got a lot of similar vibes. If you were to basically just close your eyes, don't say the name and just say what it does. That's the first thing when I first heard about it. That's the first thing I thought of. Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. But they are very different in nature. But for the average retail participant, in terms of how much yield you're getting, so back then for Luna and UST, you'll be getting around like 20%. For Athena USDE, you are looking at around like say 10-ish%, which is pretty good still. 10-ish% is pretty good.
Which is still
number.
like legendary numbers.
Exactly, for holding a stable coin.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we want to really talk about Athena, we have to go all the way back to 2013 actually. And the reason why we have to go into that, and let me just very quickly explain what Athena does. Athena basically noticed that in the market today, there was a very big discrepancy between the funding rate of Bitcoin as well as what the prevailing interest rates in the world were. right? And they basically had this idea of creating a synthetic dollar, which is that if I take 1 unit of Bitcoin and I also short 1 unit of BTC USD perp, right, equivalent to the notional of spot that I hold, then I have a synthetic dollar here because this value is going to be fixed,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing is that, and what's really interesting is for some of our viewers here, is that generally, unlike in traditional finance where interest rates are generally very stable, and it doesn't really go too crazy, in crypto, you can have perp funding rates of up to 100% annualized or even more. And Bitcoin is a little bit more well behaved. You have funding rates of about 10 to 20 to 30%. But if you think about it, 30% for, if you tell, 30% is a pretty good return, right? I mean, PE funds, I don't think the IRR is at 30%.
Yeah. That being said,
Yeah.
like I had a conversation with a retail guy, like meme holders, like 30%. I can do 100 of meme coins.
Yes. So that's the reason why there's that opportunity still. It's because the average crypto participant does not think too highly of 10, 20, 30% returns. And that's why Ethereum saw a gap there and it basically became a synthetic stablecoin issuer of choice. Now, why do I say we need to go back all the way back to 2013, 2015? Because this trade has been in the market for a very, very long time. And it's called the cash and carry trade.
Yeah.
And the yields that you could be getting back then was maybe in 2015, 100% annualized. That would not be too out of the ordinary. In 2017, you'll be getting things like, say, 50, 60, 70%. 2021, likewise, you had periods where you could be getting like 100% as well. So I think Ethereum has a really good product market fit. It saw the opportunity in crypto. It came to grab that opportunity, and now it offers an alternative stablecoin for other people.
Yeah. I think one of the things, like, look, I think, right, like they're the only game in town in this one that, have the sort of like the product market fit and have the branding, have the positioning, and have the size that people want to basically want to hold the token. The other one I was thinking is like, do you think you'll get institutional adoption? That's the other thing that I actually think about. Like, do you think insties will hold Athena?
I think it would be difficult
Because yeah,
because if you talk to any bank and you say, you know what, there's a trade here that can yield you 10%, like the bank would be like, yo,
yeah,
I am
something's wrong.
coming in, right?
No, but
Like they
yeah,
will come in. They will come in. They will come in to compete for the business. They will
but yeah,
not be sitting back and say, hey, you know what, let's collaborate. No, they'll take a knife and stab you in the back.
yeah. Because like they're probably like basically they'd be happy to give half of that, right? Basically.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be happy to get, like, I mean, for holding something that is essentially close to risk free from a pricing perspective,
Yeah.
that and you get compensated 10%. I don't think there's a world where you will have a bank that would say, let's collaborate. They would most likely try to do it themselves. So I would say that on the institutional adoption fund, funds would probably adopt it because it is a very good
You mean
currency
funds
of
would
choice.
you mean funds would hold USDE
I think funds would choose to hold USDE over USDC or
and
USDT
USDT just for
that don't
just for
offer. Yeah, and especially if Ethereum starts offering like the same kind of redemption schedule as
as the others who
USDC. Yes, I think you definitely are going to see some amount of adoption because, I mean, if you have money lying around, why would you not want to get paid for your stables lying around?
yeah.
You would, right? You would.
But the risk being
Sorry?
that basically they can't return the 10%, obviously.
Yes. So Ethereum doesn't guarantee you like 10%,
Yeah.
right? So you basically get paid what is the prevailing market rate.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you're
So
getting
the
paid
black box
10%,
being how
8%.
does Athena get the 10%? I think is the other part of the part of the equation then, right?
So they get the 10% from earning the funding. So the interesting regime in crypto markets is that Bitcoin perps and ETH perps generally trade with a positive basis, i.e., if you are long the futures or the perpetual, you need to pay a funding fee. And if you're short, you receive a funding fee. Now, why is it structurally positive? There are many reasons. First of which is that people who come to crypto, they naturally tend to be long, right? Or they want to be long. The second thing is just that if you are going to be short, then you need to be compensated for providing that leverage, right? And the third piece of the puzzle is just that if you look at any of these price charts for Bitcoin and ETH over the last, like, say, 5-10 years, it has just been going up, right? So for you to be okay with being short, you need to be paid for your troubles. And the only way to safely create a short is for you to hold an offsetting long spot position. So why is there 10%? It's because Ethena is doing right now the dirty work that nobody really wants to kind of do, and they are getting paid for that. Now, is this work worth 10%? If you're a bank out there, you'll be like salivating at the opportunity to earn 10%.
But as we all know, like banks take a long time to move, which is why again, why we think Athena is pretty exciting because they've basically moved into this vacuum where no one is, and then basically just owned it.
Yes, and I think that's been the case for them over the last 1 to 2 years. It's very interesting to see where it will go from here. That being said, the token is not exactly super cheap either, but I think there's a lot of promise, a lot of interesting things with regards to Ethena. Now, I mean, we need to segregate the token price as
from
well as
the
the
from
project,
this. Yeah,
because the project is very interesting, but the token
yeah.
price has also some amount of expectations baked into it, and whether or not it continues to
What are the main
outperform really.
expectations? What do you think is priced in?
Um, I think there's some amount of whatever I've said. I think it's mostly priced in already, right? I think the people who are in crypto, who are crypto natives, they understand the Ethena story, and so all of that is priced in. Now, what's not priced in is adoption. If we get much more accelerated adoption from TradFi, I think that's not really priced in right now. Second thing is that if Ethena manages to carve out their ecosystem, because that's what they've been trying to build, that
So
is
what
also
what do you
not
mean? What do
priced
you mean
in.
by that?
They're trying to build out the ecosystem, and basically also accrue a layer one monetary premium.
Hmm.
Because when you think about it, right, do you want to hold USDT or USDE? Would you want to be paid something for your stables that's lying around?
Of course.
Of course, right? So
Yeah.
if then why can't you create an ecosystem for USDE? And you should want to create an
You should.
ecosystem
Yeah.
for USDE. So that's the gameplay and the playbook that they are running with. But I don't think that's really been priced in terms of its success at this point
So
in time.
so layer one token incoming is what you're saying.
Monetary premium. Let's put it that way. Monetary premium.
And so why like USDC? I'm guessing because like they have regulations, their IPO and whatnot. There's a lot of hands tied that they can't do this sort of stuff. Why doesn't Tether try that?
So Tether has tried that actually, and Tether is doing a variation of that with Plasma, where you have a entirely new layer one where you use USDT as the gas. So I think Tether is running its own experiments there. It's also very exciting and very interesting to see the ramifications of that.
Circle might not be able to do it, but you'd think Coinbase would be able to actually, given they did base and they could, yeah.
I would say they
But that
could.
being said, Coinbase doesn't really like having any token related to them. Having said that,
Yeah,
right? There's no token in Circle. There's no token in Coinbase. I think they'll keep it that way.
yeah.
Which is why, yeah, regulations is a barrier to actually success. Frankly, I think in crypto that's a real thing.
I think it's also the fact that they have big existing businesses where there is a regulatory risk and a legal risk of jeopardizing their entire business that they are
Yeah,
not willing to take. In this case, this is where startups really try to shine, right? Because you have very little downside, right? You're nobody, right? If you succeed, great. But if you fail,
I think looking
no one
back to my
cares.
like banking days, right? Thinking like, yeah, I think the fact that they're IPO and that if they have any risk, they need to disclose it and disclose everything. I think, yeah, I think that's something that they don't want to touch.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, so Athena, very, very exciting again. Anything else? Do you think you want to drop out Athena?
Yeah.
So anyway, good token, not financial advice. Um,
Good product.
all right. Last but not least, number one, drum roll.
Oh, you
This
announce
one.
it. You announce it.
Yeah, this one's basically been like basically you have to if you're in crypto you have to live under a rock to not to know this one. Which to be frank, I've actually come across a few in crypto who haven't heard of it, which has actually quite astounded me. But anyway, without further ado, number one, hype for Hyperliquid.
So
Yeah,
your friends obviously don't follow
H
the hype.
H. Anyway,
Yeah. And I think hype has been
you
one
literally have
of
to be
the
living under a rock not to know Hyperliquid. Seriously,
yes, yes, it has been one of the
or
breakout
amnesia.
products in crypto thus far, and I think it has been the most successful prep DEX. And when I say most, it is by a wide margin.
Yeah,
There has been no prep
they've
DEX.
wiped the floor of everyone. Like wiped the
Yeah,
floor.
yeah,
I think we were discussing before, right? Like basically, like you flip the switch back 2 years back. I think DYDX, right, was a talk of this space. Token was out, everyone's excited. Like you don't even hear their name now, frankly.
mm. I think it is really
Like
quite
we're not
interesting.
trying to dunk on anyone, but this is what we see.
Yes, things change fast in crypto, and things move very fast. Well, the winners of yesterday may be irrelevant today, and likewise, right? Life continues on. But let me just like really quickly delve into and describe Hyperliquid. It started off as an exchange, and now why is it interesting to me? Um, is that they are actually also doing their hypercore, which powers their entire ecosystem. So Hype is no longer just prep DEX, it is going to become a L1. Well, it is a L1 already.
Yeah, which is a playbook we've seen before, frankly. But still, I think it's like for them it actually makes sense. No,
It makes a lot of sense because if you look at all the exchanges, what they have done is that they have all created their own layer ones, right? Which is their own little walled gardens, if you want to think about it from that perspective. You look at Binance, Binance has BSC. You look at Coinbase, Coinbase came out with Base. And if you look at, say, Bybit, it has Mental. FTX back then was backing Solana pretty hard. And KuCoin has its own KCS chain. Likewise with all the rest of the other lower tier exchanges. And it makes a whole lot of sense, which is that for exchanges, the users are their revenues. They want to keep their revenues with them. And if the users want to go on chain, then from the exchange's perspective, they'll be like, hey, let's create our own chain for the users to go there. Right? They want to keep that revenue there. And it makes a whole lot of sense. And I think Hyperliquid executed on this playbook perfectly. They started off as a perp DEX. They won market share. They won a lot of
started
volume.
off as a market maker, right? Oh, basically, that's the full background,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I think that was pretty key to their success. I think we've always spoken about that.
Yes. And I think it's critical because if you look at the rest of the other perp dexes, why did they not succeed? They did not succeed um, because their token prices were down. Now, why? You might think from another reader's perspective, like you might think like, okay, how is the token price even relevant to the success of the product? And the whole rationale behind that is that for a lot of the users of the platform, they hold those tokens. Now, why should they trade on your platform over another platform when most things arguably are pretty similar, right? What creates loyalty? It's when you have a bag of
Liquidity.
those tokens, you want it to succeed, right? The problem with a lot of these other alternative perp dexes was that they had no inherent liquidity providers of their own. And a lot of their liquidity providers were market makers who are incentivized to make money. And when they receive revenue in the form of tokens, they would want to convert that into cash. It is very logical and very rational.
Yeah.
And as a result, what happens is that your users of these perp exchanges are also very realistic, right? They are all traders. And before long, everyone realizes, you know what? If there's only selling pressure and I'm the buy pressure, then
Screw this.
it makes way more sense to just, exit it as well, which is why all of the rest of the other perp dexes have not done well at all. And I think it's very interesting when some of the market makers initially went to ask Jeff, the founder of Hyperliquid, if they could get a preferential rate. And Jeff, in his own words, said, no. And you are free to trade elsewhere. He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And that really goes to the core of Hyperliquid, which is that they are a team. They are just focused on executing their own vision, which may or may not be right, but you have to respect his firm determination and his willingness to make things happen. And they have actually survived quite a few incidents. There was a Jelly incident, an attack on the exchange, utilizing a low liquidity token prior, but that was resolved. There was also another incident recently about latency. Hyperliquid actually compensated users for that, which actually is very rare. It's almost unheard of. None of the other sexes, when they had issues, actually bothered compensating users. They just said, too bad. So I would say that I think on the user acquisition and user feedback front, they have had astoundingly good feedback.
Yeah.
People like them. People like the product.
I think people like
People
the
like the
product.
team.
People like the product. People like the UX. People really like, like you say, they take care of their users when like during that incident, and they are battle tested, right? With when the whale tried to do that, crazy trade.
Yeah, and if you think about it, them not accepting the a preferential rate for market makers or allowing the market makers to have some other deals, that really removed a lot of the sell pressure on the token itself, which has led to a spectacular rise in the value of the token.
I think they've also done their token launch was done like at a time where everyone had a lot of fatigue on these VC tokens being projects would have a lot of VCs in the pre-rounds, and when token was launched, there's a lot of selling pressure from VCs who needed to exit. Right, this was when it launched. It felt like it was a breath of fresh air. Right, it was a token basically. It was a fair large token that the retail didn't have to fight against the VCs. I thought that was pretty. At the time, that seemed really cool. And I think that was like pretty good marketing for them and led to everyone to look at the product a lot more.
For sure. I think that made all the difference because at the end of the day, nobody comes to crypto to lose money and to play a rigged game, right? The problem with a lot of VC tokens over the last few years is that the game has been insanely rigged against the retail buyer because they are buying at 100x the valuation. So how did the VC get that 100x return? By selling to the retail. But now the retail has smartened up. He realizes, hey, I don't want to be that.
I don't want to be the exit liquid. Yeah, just be dumped
anymore.
on.
Yeah, and which is why you see that none of the VC tokens are doing very well. And ironically, VCs are the exit liquidity. They hold a lot of tokens that nobody wants.
And long may actually no, we don't want to dunk on anyone. Yeah. So where do you see the next steps for them? Obviously, what
Mm,
would you like to see from them?
I think for them, I would like to see the ecosystem thrive. If they are able to build their layer one well and scale it well, I think that could be the next game changing moment for Hyperliquid.
Yeah.
And I don't think their ambitions just stop there because they want to build the layer for finance. That is a big, big dream. So I don't think
Yeah.
it stops there at all.
I would almost think, given their background, their market making, now they've exchanged. Like, I think they have a better chance than most. I would say. Definitely, they understand it more than say ETH Foundation, even though ETH is so big, right? But I think they're like they're more business minded in that sense.
They are definitely much more commercial people. And I would say they also have acted with generally quite high integrity. So that would be a team that I would be rooting for.
Yeah. Anyway, do your own research.
Yeah, do your own research. Don't just listen to us. This is just entertainment.
Yeah, but that was our number one. All right. So before we wrap up, I think let's give a goodie away, a nice bonus round,
Okay, let's
right?
do
Why not?
it. One for the
The
memories.
final boss. Dum dum dum. Lido. This is a token that we've talked about for many, many a time.
Well, for good reason, right? We talk about it because it's a very simple story, very
Yeah.
easy to understand, but it has never done
And
well.
yet, yeah, it is. Everyone tries to take it on thinking this is the time it's going to moon, and spam. There's like this invisible wall that just like basically hits you back down. Do you want to walk through Lido just very quickly?
Sure. So Lido basically provides staking services for ETH, and it is one of the main
It's the biggest one.
staking providers. Yeah, it actually provides the most liquid staking ETH. So ST staked ETH, and interestingly, I think what's really new is that as Sharplink, if I'm not wrong, they stake their Lido. They stake all their ETH with Lido. So that I think that's actually quite interesting.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
pretty huge, actually.
yeah, that's pretty huge. So I think that's been what has changed for Lido over the last few weeks. If you look at the token price, it has also started appreciating, but Lido generally hasn't really done well for the last few years for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
First of all, I think the organization was too large. It was a token and a project that made money. They have real revenues, but their expenses were too high, so they were not able to do any sort of like say buybacks, etc. I think someone told me this. I can't verify. I don't really know, but apparently the founder of Lido told people that he wanted to build the biggest organization possible. And I mean, from a business perspective, you
Oh, that
never
was
ever want to be maximizing headcount, right? You always want to
yeah.
think like, what is the minimum headcount that I can operate my business on?
Yeah.
So that has been changing because Lido just recently announced the firing of 50%, 15% of its workforce.
Yeah, and it's like the business models are so simple. It's like why'd you need people at all, frankly? Like you do need people, but you don't need a big team at all, frankly.
Yeah, I actually think this is one of the businesses that would be much more hands off, in fact.
Yeah. The only travesty being that, like as you'd know, right, the last 3 years, just the support from the ETH community has been like I think it's just been a tragedy. Like there's not even been support. It's just been actually more like angst against it, if anything.
Yes, because the ETH community, well, let's not paint it as the ETH community. there are very prominent people in the ETH community that care very much about decentralization. And as a result, they care very much about Lido not becoming a dominant force
Yeah.
of ETH staking. Now, if you're a business and you are told that you cannot expand beyond a certain size, that is problematic. And so that was what Lido actually faced. And I think that really puts a real cap on its valuation, in my perspective. But is this changing? I do tend to think that this is changing.
I think it'd be very interesting. You know what? I think we're a few months away, maybe 1 month away from ETH ETF staking decision from the SEC. And if they go ahead, like it'll be interesting where they stake their ETH at. Like if they go Lido or if they go some other custodian to do it.
Definitely. I think it'll be very, very intriguing to
But
see.
imagine if BlackRock, Fidelity both use Lido, then all bets are off. I would think. Do your own research.
Yeah. This is just entertainment. We are really speculating at this point.
Yeah. Right? What do you think the odds are for that?
I would say it's not zero.
But who are the alternatives they would use then?
Coinbase as a staking provider.
Yeah.
The only issue with doing it with Coinbase is that your stake token that you get back will not be as liquid as staked ETH. However, I think from an ETF perspective, I don't think that's going to be too much of a concern for them. So Coinbase is definitely a contender. They could explore doing their own staking services.
But you can't imagine BlackRock doing their own staking service. Maybe, but I'd highly doubt it. Like, they'd hire some degen to do it for them. Like, I
don't think they'll hire some degen, but I think that because with staking, right, it's not as simple as you are definitely going to make money, because if you don't do your validation well, you will get slashed.
Yeah.
And
you get
and that's not good.
Yeah,
you get really hit on the head pretty hard.
Imagine like what the filing looks like when they get hit on the head. Like, I'm sorry, we did this wrong.
Yeah, and BlackRock would probably own a large part. I mean, the ETH ETF is getting huge amounts of inflows, right? So those ETH are very, 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 very significant.
So it's quite interesting. I would imagine, like, I would imagine, they'd maybe want to, it's not they'd want to maybe diversify or something. I would imagine. Who knows? We're just guessing at this point.
Yeah, we're completely guessing. No one knows.
Yeah. But the reason why we named this as the bonus round is because of ETH. Actually, a large part is because the ETH ETF, right? The SEC decision is coming soon, and and look, come on, it's most likely going to be yes.
Yeah,
I would think so. Actually, like, let's look it up. What's the Poly Market? Is Poly Market saying anything about this? Let's look it up. Yeah, it's pretty positive, actually.
I think it's very widely telegraphed already.
Yeah.
I think Nasdaq filed an application, and I would say more likely than not, it is going to happen somewhat soon. Now, the question is just, when does it happen?
Yeah, probably October, based on what we read on X and Twitter, by the Bloomberg ETF guys. So there you have it. Interesting stuff. Hope you guys like it. So just to round it up again, 3, we had Aave, right? The only decentralized lending guy in town. 2, you had Athena, the only basically decentralized stablecoin in town. 1, you had the one and only Hyperliquid. If you don't know them, shame on you. And then our bonus round, the final boss, Lido. If you make money, hats off. Anyway, so do your own research. Hope you guys liked it. Well, we enjoyed that, and like it's all like in DeFi season, hopefully alt season, we're off to the races. Everyone is happy. As well, so everyone, please like and subscribe. If you have anything that you want us to talk about, please leave it in the comments. Reach out to us. We're always happy to do it. See you guys next episode. Bye.
Bye.